Hello and welcome to Janmashtami celebrations on India. As India celebrates the festival of Janmashtami, on ET Now we plan to do the same. Today on this Janmashtami celebration, we will talk about the timeless tales of Janmashtami, the joys of festivity and the spirituality behind Janmashtami, and also associated with Gita. And it's my privilege and it's my honor to welcome a very special guest indeed on ET Now. Prabhu Gaurganga Das from Iskcon Temple. Prabhu, it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on ET Now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Nikunj, for inviting me. It's a great occasion on Janmashtami that you are covering this episode.
Thank you very much. I want to start with something which, as a child, as an adult, I'm still trying to find the right answer for. What is the big difference in religion and spirituality?
Spirituality is about the journey of the soul. And the soul, just like any tourist, decides and plans a journey from one city to another city. Like that, the soul also can plan the journey, and that journey can go beyond death. So the entire concept of spirituality is helping us plan the entire journey. So that's how spirituality is different from regular motivational talks, which helps you understand how to remain stress-free till death. But the spirituality angle will only come in when you are speaking about the fact that the soul is timeless, spirit is timeless, spirit is unchanging, spirit is eternal, whereas matter is temporary. So spirituality is all about the tourism of the soul and taking it through the journey in life and beyond death, and considering life's journey to be a part of the preparation for planning the journey beyond death. Religion is basically the different avenues. So you can say spirituality is like the tourism sector, and religions are like the different agencies which are offering various kinds of tourism packages. So that's the difference between spirituality and tourism.
So, what role do you think you are playing, and what business do you think you are in then?
Well, my business is twofold. First is to help people understand that yes, whichever part of the world you may be, whichever country you may be, and 31% of the world is following Christianity, 23% Muslim, 15% Hindus, and 8.5% Buddhists, or whatever. But we want each one of them to know that you actually can utilize your life's energy to plan your journey beyond death. And then when you work backwards, the way you approach that journey is totally different. Just like, for an example, if a student has decided, I will crack the UPSC exam, it begins with his destination, it begins with his objective. Or some student says, I want to enter IIT and prepare for joint entrance exam, JEE or NEET. So once the objective is clear that that's my destination, then that student works backwards, and the way the lifestyle changes for that student in terms of discipline, in terms of self-control, in terms of how they are able to be resilient is totally different. Today, the biggest problem is mental health. 300 million people across the world are experiencing mental health challenges, and I believe strongly, based on what I have read in the Bhagavad Gita, it's because of lack of a proper objective, goal and destination. People say, Jindagi safar hai. But if you sit into a car, the first question the driver will ask, Sir, kahan jana hai?
Yeah.
So people are in a safar without entering into the GPS, the destination, and people just avoid the whole talk about death and life beyond. Therefore, Janmashtami is a very, very important occasion you have chosen, Nikunj, because Krishna manifested in this world and appeared on Janmashtami after the horrific death of 6 of his elder brothers. So he is bringing the focus on the fact that this is a world where death is a reality, and you have to understand the context of the journey with respect to that.
Prabhuji, in today's materialistic world, if I may use the word, everything is measured by results. Actions are important.
Right.
Intentions are crucial. But it's the results which really decide whether you are a good worker or an efficient worker. Gita says that you can control your actions, not the outcome. But when you're measured because of outcome and results, how does one go about balancing it?
Excellent question, Nikunj. And since we are discussing on the occasion of Janmashtami, I would like to share the example of, Vasudev and Devaki, because just after marriage, Kamsa was driving the chariot and Vasudev was there with Devaki behind, and suddenly the Akashwani came up and said, the eighth son will be the cause of your death. And then Kamsa suddenly changed his mood. He took his sword in his right hand. With his left hand, he held Devaki's hair, and he brought the sword right above his head and was about to bring that sword in a moment. Now, from the perspective of someone who deals with businesses every single day, if in one moment everything is going to collapse and it's guaranteed that the sword is going to come down, find its mark, and chop off Devaki's head, as they say, as sure as death. In such a scenario, Vasudev was helpless. Okay, that moment, Vasudev thought, if I become hopeless, Devaki has no chance. I may be helpless, but I still have some assets. Since you deal with assets all the time, the asset available to Vasudev at that time was one moment, 1 second, or even less than a fraction of a second. But he thought, let me give in my best and try with this dwindling asset of what a moment. So in that moment, he immediately used the only asset he had. He had only 2 assets, which were highly limited. He had limited time, but the second asset he had was quite large. It was his acute intelligence. So in such situations where we are highly stressed and resource crunched, we have to make the best use of whatever assets we have available at our disposal, and then make the best use of a bad bargain. Vasudev immediately started throwing arguments to Kamsa based on philosophy, on however much he tries, he cannot avoid death. And believe me, because of the character which Vasudev carried, Kamsa immediately agreed. Kamsa agreed to postpone killing Devaki, and they came with a compromise. So therefore, when you are in an emergency situation, step 1 is you have to create a compromise. It may not be the ideal situation, but at least you have made progress. So therefore, the whole context of Janmashtami is Vasudev was focused on the fact that every win begins with some progress. If every step you expect to be a win, then you will feel morose. So he thought, okay, step 1, get this compromise that Kamsa will not kill Devaki, but allow the kids to be born, and I have made a promise, I will deliver the children to him. So that's how it began. So therefore, this is a great example of how Vasudev used the best use of a bad bargain and was helpless but did not become hopeless. And I believe in today's context, in the financial markets in which you are dealing with, the business world, the corporate world, 2 billion population out of the 8 billion in this world only have disposable income. The 6 billion of the world does not have disposable income. They are below poverty line. Many of them are highly poverty stricken. They are in distressed condition. And, very euphemistically, we call them the global south and use words like that. But if this 2 billion becomes aware of the fact that the Lord has been kind upon us and we have enough. So in the worst case scenario they may be going through, they can always look at how the 6 billion is living and how their life is.
Prabhu, we are talking about G20. It is an epic moment for India. And it is such a pleasure and a coincidence that on a day when India is celebrating Janmashtami, that's the week where India would also be celebrating G20. The whole construct of G20 this time is Vasudev Kutumbakam. That means unity. How does that fit in with the religious thought of Iskcon?
It's a great question. You know, the founder of Iskcon, Srila Prabhupada, he traveled to New York, and his vision was also to gift the Bhagavad Gita knowledge to the whole world. As our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, he gifts Bhagavad Gita to so many, you know, world leaders. So if you see here, you have Bhagavad Gitas in almost 80 languages.
Wow.
And the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust International has, you know, distributed almost 500 million pieces of Bhagavad
500
Gita.
million.
500 million pieces of Bhagavad Gita and related literatures over the last 55 years. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada visited London, he was asked, "Sir, why you have come to London?" And Prabhupada said, "Well, over the last 300 years, British have taken so many valuable jewels from India, but forgotten one of the most precious jewels, the Bhagavad Gita. So I have come to do home delivery." So Vasudeva Kutumbakam, I think, is the perfect understanding of what the Gita says. Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmani Gavi Hastini Shunai Chaiva Shupakecha Pandita Samadarshana, that a person who's learned sees the soul within all the diversity. And therefore that captures the essence of what the Indian thought is. One earth, one family, one future. Because ultimately there may be differences and diversity across the world in cultures and thoughts and nationalities and everything. But ultimately we are living in the same planet which is going through massive climate change. The SDGs, of the 17 SDGs, they are in such great situation of being completely eroded. And the UN is struggling to convince countries and nations to come up with strategies by which we can fulfill them. So I think we need to understand that if the house is on fire, we can't be squabbling over petty things. And I think one earth is very crucial, because as we are facing this massive, climate change, each one of us has to realize that it is the individual transformation which will result in global transformation. So United Nations, as part of their agenda in 2017, created a new vertical. It's called UN Faith for Earth. So this temple, Iskcon Chowpatty, is running another project called Govardhan Eco Village in Palghar. And we are accredited to United Nations Environment Program, United Nations Economic and Social Council, United Nations World Tourism Organization. So in 2017, they came up and said that we give a lot of data, a lot of scientific facts to explain people on how the climate change is affecting us and how you as individuals need to change. But in spite of our best presentations, people are somehow not changing their habits. So we, the United Nations, with science and data-backed organizations, are reaching out to all the spiritual leaders across the world and spiritual organizations and pleading and begging them, please also share the message of disciplined life, nature-friendly living, the dangers of climate change, along with your spiritual sermons. And although Islam may be different from Christianity, may be different from Judaism, may be different from Hinduism, may be different from Sikhism and Jainism in so many ways, but when the house is on fire, everyone has to come together and save each other. And therefore they created a historic vertical called United Nations Faith for Earth. And UN Faith for Earth has appointed various counselors to spread this message of spirituality, sustainability and social impact. And in 2020, I have been appointed as one of the UN Faith for Earth counselors. And many of us are at our wits' end trying to understand how can science and spirituality come together. The good news is UN has already done that by creating this vertical. So there may be so many difficult challenges because of climate change, but one good thing which has happened is it has opened everyone's eyes with respect to the fact that we cannot afford to keep squabbling over petty issues. We have to understand that we are dealing with the larger issue of the climate change, and the earth is on fire, the planet is on fire. And therefore, practically all the biggest climate change authorities whom I have met, they have conveyed and they have revealed in confidence that in spite of any degree of scientific analysis about climate change mitigation and all the climate crisis, the root at the climate crisis is, at the very root of climate crisis is the individual choice.
What can an individual do tomorrow morning to just be a good global citizen? Somebody is watching those shows, okay, I'm inspired by what Prabhuji is trying to communicate. I want to make a difference. I have limited means, I have the desire, but I don't have a starting point. How does one start?
Improving self-discipline as an example. Self-discipline is the fusion of intention with action. To give you an example, few years ago, say 2008, NCR, Delhi NCR was burning 2 billion tons of diesel and petrol. So if the narrative of progress is we should have one more car, one more new car, one more vehicle. Now you require 12 times the oxygen to actually burn that. So to have almost 12 tons of oxygen, you know, to be able to completely burn all of that, you will require 60,000 square kilometers. You know, you will need 60,000 trees.
Forest land.
You will need 60,000 trees to be able to emit that oxygen, which would burn that level of oxygen, which would burn that level of petrol and diesel. And you need almost 4,700 square kilometers of land to be able to have that kind of forest, whereas Delhi NCR is less than 50 square kilometers. So as an individual, what can one do? One should realize that I have 3 responsibilities. First, I have to have self-transformation. My narratives about my priorities should change. My intention should not be driven by fear, by desire, but at least by a sense of duty, if not selfless service.
And purpose.
So when there is self-transformation, then there is some awareness about sustainability, about nature. So what an individual can do is first create harmony between self and the divine. When there is harmony between self and divine, then he can think about harmony with nature. Then when there is harmony with nature, then you look outside of yourself and your family and you realize that yes, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There is an entire planet and there are human beings outside my immediate social range who need a lot of support. I have been given a lot, and maybe the perspective of my life should change towards them. And therefore, rather than an individual thinking that there are a few companies who are doing good CSR work and they should continue doing that good CSR, all glories to the $2 to $3 billion of CSR which India Inc. is doing. Each individual should know that we are moving in the direction from corporate social responsibility to what I call as corporate spiritual responsibility.
Corporate spiritual responsibility.
Corporate
Such a nice term.
spiritual responsibility. And it's my responsibility as an individual, which begins with self-control. And by the way, I'm coming up with a book on this very soon.
Yeah, we look forward to that. So we're just going to move to the next part of the interview now, where we actually would be looking at tour of the lovely kitchen of Iskcon.
Absolutely.
Talking about the social responsibility work which Iskcon is now committing itself to, and how a small idea can become a... तो प्रभु हम कहाँ खड़े हैं?
ये है राधा गोपीनाथ मंदिर का इस्कॉन चौपाटी का किचन.
ओके.
यहाँ पर भगवान के लिए भोग बनता है और जो राधा गोपीनाथ जी भगवान हैं उनको प्रतिदिन भोग लगता है. भगवद गीता में कृष्णा ने कहा पत्रम पुष्पम फलम तोयम. लाइक यू आस्क्ड मी अबाउट G20 and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So if the whole world is supposed to be one family, then food is something which need to be shared. And today, we have a major hunger issue across the world, malnutrition issue.
You know, the food is, the aroma is absolutely divine.
हाँ,
तो इसकी secret recipe क्या love, affection and care है.
actually, Krishna says in Gita that you may avoid bhajan, but you cannot avoid bhojan.
Right. So true.
So he gives a method by which you can also connect with him through bhojan, and that is known as food yoga.
So this is food yoga.
So technically, in all the temples across India, there is a concept of offering bhoga to the Lord, accepting him as the one who has given everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So I say that if someone gives you a glass of water, even a child says thank you. So for what we have received, we are offering to him as a token of our love and affection and accepting that as prasada. So therefore, as you can see here, we are preparing a nice, wonderful dish which is to be offered with love and devotion to the Lord. And in due course of time, this will be honored by the various bhakts who will be coming and visiting the temple.
So I always ask my wife before the dinner, आज खाने में क्या बना है? तो आज इस्कॉन के किचन में खाने में क्या बन रहा है?
आज के इस्कॉन के किचन में दाल तड़का, उसके साथ आलू की सब्जी एंड साथ में करेला. लेकिन हम लोग इसको कॉन्शियसली भगवान के स्वाद के लिए रिजर्व करते हैं, तो इसलिए यहाँ पर भक्त लोग आकर मेनू नहीं पूछते. जो प्रसाद है वो प्रसाद है.
But Prabhu, if you look at our lifestyle today, availability of electricity, availability of medicine, communication, everything today, Prabhu, is more like a king's unimaginable lifestyle 200 years ago. Yet, if I look at mental illness, the level of unhappiness, even though lifestyle has improved, the level of unhappiness has improved.
There is a very interesting shloka by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and he says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim rikshati. To the extent we think I am the enjoyer, I am the controller, I am the proprietor, to that extent one's anxiety level grows. And therefore in a country like India, 370 suicides happening every single day. So therefore this appears to be a very simple act कि भाई ये करेले की सब्जी है, but we are making it not with the view to enjoy myself, but to offer to Krishna. And so we are in the mood of being a trustee. So it has also been seen that those who do businesses with the conscious understanding that before I begin the business, before I started cutting these alus, before I started cutting these potatoes, my intention was I will cut these potatoes and use the spicing and cook it to offer it to Krishna. So my intention was determined before the action. So before you start your business, you have to offer the fruits of your business to Krishna, some part of it, right? So therefore, across all religions, Christians call 10% of giving tithing. Muslims have zakat. In Hinduism, there is dana. Dattavyamiti yaddanam dhyete anupakarane. Deshe kale cha patreta. So therefore, just like I have cooked the potato, but before even cutting the potato, my intention was to offer it to Krishna. Like that, each one as per the religion and tradition should have the intention before beginning the business, some part at least, I must offer for some cause outside of myself. It could be a social cause, it could be a spiritual cause, it could be for education, healthcare, welfare, whatever. But if people try to do their businesses and occupations in the mood of being trustee, so this appears to be a simple aloo ki bhaji, but actually it is conveying a very important lesson.
So true, so true, so true, so true. Prabhu, it's just been an absolute honor to be blessed by Lord Krishna and to be, eating prasadam in your divine company. On behalf of everyone from ET Now, thank you very much and thank you for inviting ET Now.
Thank you
And
so
thank you
much,
very much, sir.
Nikunj. Pleasure to be in your association and such brilliant questions you asked. Thank you very much.